Whether your beer is in a bottle, can, or glass, kick back and relax. It's Better on Draft.
Hello and welcome to Better on Draft number 380 with our guest today, Carmen Amato, who we will get to in just a moment. First, let's check in with Wendy and say, hey, Wendy, how are you doing? What are you drinking?
Oh, today I am drinking a Griffin Claw Flying Buffalo Imperial Stout. This one's coming in at 14%, and since I want to be able to be understood by the end of the show, I am cutting it with a Yingling.
Very nice. I have a Bourbon County brand stout vanilla rye from, I think, 2023, if I remember right, that I got a growler of at the Bourbon County brand stout tasting I was at earlier today. They had probably 10 different varieties on tap ready to go for tasters, and I tried 5.
Did you try any of the new ones?
I tried the 2 new variants that they had, Cherries Jubilee and the Chocolate Praline. I preferred the Chocolate Praline. But the Cherries Jubilee was pretty good.
Okay. I haven't gotten any yet, so.
That's usually our Black Friday show, which is today, is about the BCBS chase. And apparently I did quite well today. But I bought no bottles of it.
Yeah, I'll go pick up some bottles, but I'll wait until a little bit later, so.
We can do that now.
Yeah.
Also with us, we have Carmen Amato. Hello, Carmen. How are you? What are you drinking?
Hey there. Hi, Rob and Wendy. Glad to be here. I am drinking, for the first time, haven't had it before, an Austin Farmhouse Ale from Equilibrium Brewery in Middletown, New York, in the Hudson Valley. It's a little cloudy. It's an unpasteurized, unfiltered. And may I point out, I am drinking it in a glass I brought home from Papua New Guinea about, 20 years ago. So this is a storied glass. I had 2, one bit the dust a while ago. But it is a South Pacific export lager glass from Papua New Guinea. And, kind of mixing my cultures here.
Well, yeah, that tends to work. My beer is in a Taxman Brewing Company glass, which is definitely not Goose Island.
Very good.
But no, that's a great brewery. I love Equilibrium, and I haven't had their stuff for a while, but I will usually pick up a bottle when I see them in the store.
The only thing I can knock them about is that the printing on their label is teeny, teeny, teeny. You need a magnifying glass to find out what you're drinking.
I feel like so many bottles are going that way. It is a shame as we get older to have to find what the things are.
I resemble that remark.
Yeah, I don't know how many reviews I've done where I'm like, I will look up the ABV later because I can't read this print.
Yes, if the ABV is even on the label.
Can't tell you anything about this label other than it says Austin and Equilibrium.
Yeah.
But
Carmen, hello. Welcome to the podcast. Can you tell us a little about yourself, why we might have invited you on?
Well, I think you invited me on to talk about a series of books that I wrote.
Definitely.
About beer wars in upstate New York during Prohibition. And these are the Galliano Club books. They were inspired by the stories that my grandfather told. He was a deputy sheriff during Prohibition. And the books take place in a fictionalized version of my hometown of Rome, New York. And my grandfather actually makes a cameo in the 4th book.
I have not gotten there. I've a significant portion of the way through the 1st book, I think 75%, but I have not met your grandfather yet.
Well, the books only get better from there.
I can only imagine. I am enjoying the 1st one a lot.
Thank you. I never really anticipated writing historical fiction. I'm a CIA veteran, and my sweet spot is contemporary police procedural, contemporary thrillers. But I had the honor of being inducted into my hometown's Hall of Fame in 2019. And after the ceremony, someone came up and said, "Oh, will you write a book about Rome?" And at the time I was like, no, I really could not imagine writing some sort of thriller in Rome, New York. There wasn't just anything that grabbed me. And then another time I had posted some, I'm not a photographer, but they were kind of artsy pictures of the steeples in Rome and the rooftops. And included in that was a picture of the very real Galliano Club, which is this little bitty hangout for Italian men on the main street going through the Italian historic neighborhood, Dominic Street. And somebody posted on Facebook, "Oh, that's a great name for a mystery series, the Galliano Club." And that got me thinking. So combined that little germ of an idea with my grandfather's stories. And during the pandemic, when my mom was locked down in upstate New York, I would call her every night. I'm in Tennessee. And I knew she was very upset. She was feeling very isolated. So I would ask her questions about growing up in Rome and the really old Italian parts of town and the stores and things. So between her stories, my grandfather's stories, and a vivid imagination, I came up with this prohibition series. And it's really the beer wars between a Chicago bootlegger who was tossed out of Chicago by Al Capone. He rushes to upstate New York where he has family and decides that he's going to create his beer empire big enough to get himself back to Chicago and boot Capone off the throne, right? But he doesn't have any money. He had to leave Chicago under, shall we say, tricky circumstances with a price on his head courtesy of Capone. So he manages to blackmail the accountant for the largest copper and brass rolling mill, very much based on Revere copper and brass in upstate New York. So he gets the accountant to embezzle the company, gets him enough money. He starts his beer empire, but what he really needs is a speakeasy to be his headquarters, like the Four Deuces was for Capone. And looking around, this Italian hangout for men, the Galliano Club, looks to be the perfect property. So standing in his way, not letting him get his hands on this luxe property, is Luca Lombardo, a relatively recent Italian immigrant who runs the place on behalf of the owner, who's kind of sliding downhill after the death of his son in the Great War. So this is 1926. It's a very different Prohibition story. We don't have flapper girls. We don't have bathtub gin. We've got the blue collar immigrant workers who built American ship hulls and copper tubing for plumbing and the electrical grid and telephone wires and big buildings. Those are the people who are drinking beer at the Galliano Club. So I had a great time putting all this together. It spins out over 3 books and a prequel. And I think you have the graphic for the prequel. And the first book that you're reading is Murder. It won the Silver Falchion Award for Best Historical of 2023. So the books have done pretty well. And I think people, as they go on, get really invested in who's going to win this beer war in this very industrial town. So,
Yeah, I found it very interesting. And this is a beer podcast, and beer is starting to factor more heavily. But I found that, well, when I was doing research on you, of course, I found that you have a bit of a beer history, at least with the brewery in the area. But I found some of the setup and things. It was interesting. So the bootlegger, not to give too much of the story away, sets up a brewery basically on the side of the river in an abandoned mill.
right.
And so I thought, that was, he's got access to clean water. He's able to get equipment there, kind of on the sly. So I thought some of that stuff was interesting. Some of the beer things that you had in there, more specifically, but it is definitely more of a, I mean, it's a fictional story. Beer isn't necessarily the center point so much as a story point.
This is true. The beer became the catalyst for the conflict.
Yes.
What I had a great time though researching the beer in order to feel like I could add some, authentic details there. And my first stop was the West End Brewery in Utica, New York. Now, Utica Club, can't say that that's, anyone's top craft beer in the U.S. But when I was growing up, that was a major industry in upstate New York. And my grandfather drank Utica Club. I guess it was really 60s, 70s. They had trolleys. You would drive, park your car, you'd get into the trolley, and it would take you through the brewery. And then they gave away 2 free beers to every adult and 2 free root beers for every child. I can't imagine anybody doing that now, but I called them and said I was writing a book. It's about prohibition. And I wanted to know 2 things. How were they making beer during prohibition? What were they using? How were they getting materials? And how did West End stay afloat during prohibition? So probably the most interesting things I found out was the use of malt syrup for everything, that they were trying to find some way to, sell the ingredients, and thinking about making beer with just malt syrup and yeast. How tasty was that? And how quickly they were making it in order to ship it out. So that was one thing that struck me, was the illicit beer they were making during Prohibition probably was pretty nasty. And the second thing was all the different stuff that the West End Brewery was making to stay afloat when a lot of the other breweries in the whole central New York area were closing down. By 1931, West End was really having a hard time, but they had done really well with products like Champanetto Mum. The guys during the tour were great because they had all these weird bottles of stuff that they had made during Prohibition. They had them in a great big glass case, and they opened the case and, were handing me these bottles to look at and do the research. But I just was really floored by the process during Prohibition and just how hasty it must have been. That's not to say they weren't making money at it. So I wanted to share some little research I had done about just how much the Chicago outfit, Capone's outfit, how much they were making on beer. So, thinking about your craft brewers, and get out your Quicken books and you can see, how you stack up. So say 1926, 1927, Capone was moving 100,000 barrels of beer a week. Each barrel cost them $3 to produce. They sold them to saloons and whoever for $55 a barrel. And $20 out of every barrel went to paying bribes to the police and judges and all. So their gross weekly profit was 5.2 million, and their weekly bribes was 2 million. And so the whole Untouchables gang, Elliot Ness and all, their real goal was to dry up the bribes because they were Treasury. Prohibition Bureau had gotten into Treasury by that time. So I just thought I'd share that. My goodness,
Yeah.
I feel like I was in the wrong business,
Yeah, well, yes. I don't think that would work now because it's not so illicit, so you can't mark it up. So
Yeah, I know,
but,
right?
But they just are closing the weed loophole and so the THC beverage market might see
Right?
that's coming.
Yeah. So
I-
that was how those books came to be, and the research I got to do. Plenty of fun.
Yeah. I'll give Wendy a chance in just a second. I wanted to point out that the Champanetto Mum was one that I had highlighted in the book because I thought that was a great name. Like it hints at being champagne, but isn't champagne.
Right. And Mum's Champagne is, a famous French name that people would have recognized. But it was white grape juice, basically.
And they also drink a lot of Rickies.
I had not heard that phrase before going to the West End Brewery and seeing lime Ricky, lemon Ricky bottles.
Right. And they're basically soda, I guess, now.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what I'm hearing is that you didn't really have a whole lot of beer background before you started writing it.
This is true. I was not anticipating having to learn about beer at all.
So, has it changed your mind? Are you now a beer fan?
I wouldn't say I was never not a beer fan.
Okay.
But probably I know more about how beer is made now than I did before. Because, you can be a fan as a drinker or an enjoyer of beer without necessarily knowing too much about the back end.
That is very much true.
Yes.
So, how long did it take to write the series?
About 2 years. And I did not write them in sequence. When I first started, I thought I would write one book. And then as more pieces of the puzzle that became this city came together, I decided I would go into 3. I wrote Murder first, which is the first book that Rob's reading. Then I wrote the prequel. And then I wrote Blackmail at the Galliano Club, and then wound it up with Revenge at the Galliano Club. So all told, 2 years.
So, it seems like such a long time for the project to come together. Keep your focus on it. I love it. You have other series of books as well. Was this the first one, or was this something you transitioned into?
This was an interruption in a contemporary thriller continuum. My first book came out 13 years ago. It's The Hidden Light of Mexico City, which was a political thriller. And that was inspired by 3 years living in Mexico. After that, I started a series, and that's still ongoing, and that's the Detective Amelia Cruz series. She's the first female police detective in Acapulco. So those books are very much based on what you see in the news. This is cartels, corruption, machismo, missing persons in Mexico. So that series has done very well. But during the pandemic, it was hard to focus on tough tough stuff like that about missing persons and all. And that's definitely not a conversation that my mother wanted to have when I called her in the evenings. So the Galliano Club was my pandemic project, project for my mother, to keep her on an even keel during that tough time. They're finished. The whole saga wraps up in the 3 books plus prequel. So now I'm on back to Detective Amelia Cruz and the perils of Acapulco.
Everything's back to normal now.
Everything's back to normal, right? Yeah.
So I do think it's funny because both series are something that is very interesting to me. So I'm super glad that we ran across you because now I have a lot of information to add to my TBR list. But do you think you would write another historical fiction?
I am dying to write another historical fiction. I'm dying to get back to Lido, New York in 1926, but I can't figure out because without, patting myself on the back too much, it really wrapped up well. So, if you guys have any ideas, Rob, when you finish, how can I get back into that universe, back into the prohibition, kind of illegal tangles that they all get into? I'm looking for a way to get back to that universe. It was a lot of fun.
I could understand that because it's a very vibrant town that you've got there with lots of people, and it just feels alive and like a city that you're visiting.
The town of Lido, New York in the books is based on my hometown of Rome, New York, which was a very vibrant, thriving city throughout most of, say, the 70s and 80s. And then, unfortunately, they made the decision to tear down the downtown area and rebuild the Revolutionary War Fort Stanwix exactly where it had been. So it gutted the whole economic heart of the city. A few years after that, Griffiths Air Force Base closed, and that was a major employer in the area. And the city has never really recovered its economic footing. So in a way, I'm paying homage to the city that was in the 20s. It was a real going concern. And of course, my grandfather was deputy sheriff, and he ran the jail in the basement of the courthouse.
So is there a lot of craft beer around that area still?
I would say it's new. New York State changed its law in 2013 that allowed craft beer makers to sell on premises, to serve food on premises. I mean, it just really blew up the craft beer industry there. And I think they're trying to start growing hops in the area because New York State had been a huge hops farmland. I mean, that was just such a big crop. I actually wrote down that I was doing some research about that. The first hops were grown in 1808 there. And then unfortunately by like the turn of the century, the last century, disease had killed the crops and they've never come back. About 2 years ago, I was in Cazenovia, New York, at the Myers Landing Brewery, and they are starting to regrow. So that was exciting. They're bringing it back, but it's still a small crop right now.
I hope Wendy can remember the details because I have forgotten them. But we had someone on who was talking about Michigan was a hop growing state, and Wendy's in Michigan. But they stopped because they thought it was a blight, but it just turned out to be a bad year or something like that, mildew or a mildew year or something like that. And so the state turned away from hop growing after that. But I guess it's coming back.
Yep.
So
we are
most
definitely.
of the, I'm sorry, go ahead, Wendy.
No, go ahead.
Most of the hops in the U.S. are grown in the Northwest.
Yes.
It's like Idaho is a.
So no, California is really popular with the hops. Michigan has actually come up. I was actually just look up real quick what the stat is.
Yeah. The Northwest hops are pretty famous because there's a lot of hop research that goes on up there in like Oregon and Washington and Idaho and in that area. So yeah, a lot of hops are grown there. They do the big fresh hop harvest. Like I love fresh hop season, which is around September and October. And that's when the hops are harvested. It goes straight into the beers instead of being dried first. And they just the flavors are a little different, and it's fun. And the beers don't tend to last long. They don't tend to be large batches. But fresh hop season up in that area of the world it's just insane. There will be several different fresh hop beers on tap in every tap house in the area.
Oh, fun. I really like Myers Landing. Small. They've got a downtown Cazenovia and their farm, kind of farm to table location, which is just gorgeous on the banks of the lake. But I was really surprised to walk out there and see that they are starting to cultivate. Cornell University is trying to support the New York State beer makers, and they've got a research lab that's kind of an up and coming thing.
I have a vague memory of them having a brewer program that someone had mentioned before too. So it would make sense.
Yeah, they have a brewery program and a really good newsletter where they're talking about what they're doing now and what New York State had done in the past. And then I think there's a whole state level effort. I think it's hashtag Think New York, Drink New York. Yeah, Think NY, Drink NY. It's the one thing on the label I can read. And so New York is really at the state level trying to support these craft brewers.
Mm-hmm.
That's always good to hear.
Yes.
Yeah. New York has the second biggest craft brewing state after California.
So I did look up the Michigan hop facts, and it looks like we have 670 acres of hops with 68 farms in the state. We're actually the fourth highest producer of crops in the United States.
Wow. Bravo.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
So and I've noticed a lot more brewers are using Michigan hops more and more, at least here in Michigan. It's always fun when I go to other states and find Michigan hops in there too.
Yeah, and I rarely see them, but there are Indiana hops. They exist, and I will see Indiana hop beers. Indiana hop, Indiana barley, all that in a beer. So I'm in Indianapolis. I don't know that I mentioned that before.
Well, I'm in Tennessee, right outside of Nashville, and we've got some newish within the last 2-3 years, craft brewers and brew pubs opening up here. So now I'm going to have to go ask where their hops are from, as I have no idea if Tennessee is growing hops. That didn't occur to me to ever ask.
There's some really good breweries in Nashville.
Oh yeah, Nashville has kind of something for everybody.
True. I also want to spend some time there because there's a chef that I like on the Food Network that has a few restaurants. One of them is a brewery that I want to go and eat her food.
Oh my goodness, who's this?
Manit Chohan.
Okay, I'll have to remember that. Go check that out.
Yep. That it's been put back on my list because even though I've been to Tennessee for beer or to Nashville for beer, I want to go back so that I can go to her restaurants while I'm there.
That's a good bucket list to have. I like that.
So let's talk a little bit about what got you into writing, your background.
I guess I've always liked to write, but I knew that it was going to be my second career. I had known that for a long time. My first career was as an intel officer with the CIA, 30-year career. Most of my career was focused on technical collection and counter drug issues. So that writing The Hidden Light of Mexico City and the Detective Amelia Cruz series was a pretty natural segue to what I had done, where I had been. I spent about a third of my career overseas, and that helped me pick up a lot of the experiences that have found their way into those books. So, of course, now you're. I will tell you one. I know you can see over my shoulder. There's a big poster with the cover of The Hidden Light of Mexico City, and that's a political thriller, really born out of what I saw in a very socially stratified Mexico. Everybody talks about the haves and the have-nots. In that country, the gap between haves and have-nots is very, very big, and there's not much of a middle class. If you've been listening to the news, watching the news the past week, they've been having big protests in most of the cities, but a very big protest in Mexico City, right in front of the national, or in the great big square called the Zocalo, protesting the murder of a mayor in the state of Michoacan, but also these protests are against what is perceived to be big government corruption, cahoots with cartels, etc. So we spent some time, as I say, in Mexico. I wanted to kind of find a vehicle to capture what I saw, which was this great disparity, this social disparity, the corruption, etc. But I knew that nobody was going to be very interested in a nonfiction book, a sociology book for me. I had no academic entree for a book like that, so I decided to make it into fiction. And that became kind of my first foray into fiction with that, and it did well as well. It was longlisted for the 2020 Millennium Book Award, so it still has legs. It's still one of my best-selling titles after 13 years. But that's really where a lot of the experiences that I had found their way first into that book and then into the first few books of the Detective Amelia Cruz series. So I'll give you one example. I was in Mexico City at the big Banamex bank, and I had a check to be cashed. And this was a check from a NATO ambassador. written on an embassy, their embassy account. So I'm standing in line, morning in Mexico City, and it's a very long line. It's moving very slowly. And most of the people in line are tradesmen or maids. And folks wear uniforms. If you're a domestic, there is a signature uniform you wear. If you're a nanny, it's pink. If you're a maid, it's gray or navy blue. If you're a painter, you're in whites. Everybody else is wearing like a blue boiler suit if you're doing manual labor. So everybody ahead of me, it's a long line. You know what class they are, the work they're involved in. So, I'm just waiting. The line's moving very slowly. So this young man comes in and he is dressed like a gorgeous suit, pages of GQ, big heavy watch, leather shoes, shined up nice, natty haircut. And he looks at the line and he just steps in front of the person who's like 3 from the front. And everybody just sort of shuffles back. And like nobody does anything. Like, hey, buddy, you just cut. We've been waiting here 20 minutes. Get to the back of the line like everybody else. But I was really surprised. Nobody said anything. Well, stupid gringa me goes, huh, or, some sort of huffy noise. And everybody looks at me like, don't you understand the rules?
This is how it works.
Yeah. And when I got to finally the teller and I hand her the check and it's endorsed, she runs it through this little machine and invalidates the check in both front and back. And she said, the signature doesn't match, and gives me back the check. And I guess I didn't, are you kidding? And I said, what am I supposed to do now? And she gives me the brush off, and I hated this. Come back in 15 minutes, which is basically translates to get out of my face. And there was nothing I could do. But I know if I had not said a word, that banking transaction would have just gone through fine. I didn't know the rules. But I think people are finally tired of those rules, and that's why you're seeing what you're seeing on the news right now. So yes, I put that into The Hidden Light of Mexico City. There is a scene where my protagonist, somebody cuts in front of her and she makes a huffy noise and her check is invalidated at the bank.
Aha.
Yeah.
So I do have lots of questions about the process. Like, how did you go from your first profession? Like, was it a gradual shift? Did you start working on it before you found a publisher? What was that process like?
I did start writing while I was still working. And in fact, The Hidden Light of Mexico City did come out a few years before I retired, which meant I really couldn't tell anybody at work about that because at the time, at the end of my career, I was supervising a number of people, and I didn't want to get into ethics problems with anybody assuming they were supposed to buy the boss's book. So had kept things pretty low key until I retired, and I've been retired now 8 years. But after that, I could pick up the pace and didn't feel constrained.
With it being a fiction book, did you have to go through the channels to publish? Because I know I've heard about that before.
If it is something intelligence related, I would have had to. And I am participating with some other retired CIA folks in a project. And that book will end up being vetted by the Publications Review Board. But because nothing that I have written to date on my own has been intelligence related. I don't have to. Yeah. Detective Amelia Cruz is close, but that's a police procedural. It's not espionage or spy thriller stuff.
Right. So she still has to gather evidence and things, which might come close, right?
Comes close, but it's a different kind of vibe. So I'm
That's
feeling okay.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, and we don't need to probe too far.
So, and we kind of touched before we went on air about the audiobook, because the audiobook for the Galliano Club just got released.
Yes, thank you. Yes, all 4 Galliano Club books are out as audiobooks narrated by James Frummel. He's a fabulous voice actor. It was a blast working with him. And what I loved, he's able to give us all the different accents. 1920s, industrial Milltown. You have people from all over who have come to upstate New York because there were so many mills, so much industry up there. And so you have the Polish contingent and the Italian contingent and the Irishmen. And of course, the chief of police is a very florid Irishman. And James delivers all these voices without going over the top. I want to ask him, and I really should, how he managed one scene, and this is definitely a scene that is taken from my grandfather's stories, when you have Luca Lombardo, the Italian immigrant, Toby Gleason, the Irish rum runner, and Carol Dombrowski, the Polish mill foreman. And they are watching a bootlegger shootout from the relative safety of a cemetery. And they are hiding behind the stones, and they are watching, basically, I will give, a teeny spoiler. They're watching the accountant kill a bootlegging accomplice. Well, and then they're these 3 guys are arguing, what are they going to do with this information? And James nails this dialogue with the Irishman and the Polish accent, and the Italian accent. It's just great. And of course, the hiding in the cemetery thing is something that my grandfather was assigned to do as a deputy sheriff. It seems like the bootleggers held a fake funeral and buried their booze in the coffin. And the idea was they were going to come back later to dig it up. And my grandfather was assigned to go to the cemetery, wait for them, and then arrest them. Well, my grandfather did not want to go alone. So he gets his best friend to come with him. His best friend who sold insurance, so maybe not your wingman that you really need in a tight spot. But the 2 men, my grandfather and his buddy Hank, went to the cemetery, and it was a cold night and pitch black, of course, late 1920s, not having a lot of street lights in that area. And they are huddled behind a headstone, and the wind's howling, and, fall wind getting under their collar, and it's cold. And they waited for those bootleggers. They waited 10, maybe 15 minutes, and then said, the heck with them. If they come for the booze, they're welcome to it. And that was the end of that.
It's a foolproof plan by those bootleggers then.
Yes. I never heard if they got him or not. But one thing
I'm pretty sure you described a scene that is pretty close to where I'm reading right now.
Okay. I had a really great time, transposing his stories. But I also did a lot of research, looking up old newspapers of the era and the old Rome Daily Sentinel. And that's where I was really taken with how many news reports there were of people getting caught with stills in their barns. 1926, 1927. That area was still really rural. A lot of dairy farms up there, a lot of small truck farms where people are growing, carrots and turnips and things, for, small grocery stores. And I was just amazed how many were building a still in their barn and then ending up in federal court in Schenectady, New York. I guess that's where they were sending the bootleggers, who were just trying to, have a beer.
Right. Yeah. Either for themselves and family, or maybe that $3 to $55 thing.
Yes, right. Well, upstate New York, Rome, it's really well positioned because you're midway between a route that goes from the Great Lakes to New York City on the water. So you can go from New York City up the Hudson, connect with the Mohawk, and then you just have a little area overland, and that's where Rome is. It was the portage for the Iroquois to go to the Great Lakes, but they had to carry the canoes across this little bit between the Mohawk and Wood Creek. And that was called the Dio Wayne Step, but that was where Rome is now. So, as far as waterways go and transport, if you made beer there, you could ship it to a lot of places.
Yeah, it sounds like you can go west, you can go south, you can get to a bunch of big markets.
And then, of course, you had booze coming over from Canada. It's just not that far.
Detroit was in a similar situation at the time.
Yeah, I bet that was a fertile ground.
Yeah.
Yes, we have quite a bit of prohibition history here as well. So we actually have a local brewery that partnered with the Detroit Historical Museum to put together a program about it at our Detroit Historical Museum. So that was pretty cool.
Well, you know that the end of Prohibition Day is coming up. It's December 5th.
Yes, I do.
Good excuse for a party.
I went back real quick to the audiobooks because I am a huge audiobook fan. I am constantly moving around the house, and I have found at my age, if I sit down, I fall asleep. So I try really hard to keep moving. And so I listen to audiobooks all day long because I can leave the room and my phone doesn't have to come with me if I have the headphones on. So I'm really excited about the audiobooks. And I'm just curious how you chose who was going to be.
Oh, who would narrate it?
Yes, who would be your narrator? Is that something you got to pick, or is that something they picked for you?
I got to pick, which I was very thrilled. I listened to probably 40 different auditions. And as soon as I heard James, he's just got a deep, mellow voice, but a nice cadence and a nice rhythm. And he just seemed very experienced. I wasn't sure about the voices that were doing the different accents. At first, I thought, I'm not a big audiobook listener. So my assumption was he's just going to read the book. He's just going to read the book. And then So we connected. We had a Zoom call, and he's like, "Well, let me record a couple minutes, and you tell me what you want me to record." So I sent him a couple of scenes, and just blew me away with the way he was creating these characters. And so it was a whole different experience for me listening to the audiobook than just either reading it or having written it. So that's how, he just was head and shoulders above anybody when it came to voicing those characters.
I've always wondered that because, and the narrator can 100% make or break your perception of the book. Like, I've had books that I could not listen to the audiobook, but I liked the book when I read it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had other books that the narrator 100% made that book for me.
Well, I hope he does that for you. I just, I'm biased, so.
Right. But it must have felt good to hear your characters, have voices.
Come to life.
It was a surprise. And also, I think all authors have this when you're writing, there's a tempo or, certain accents on words or, just a tone or how it's written. And sometimes the narrator is in lockstep with you, and sometimes they put a different spin on it. And you're like, oh, yeah, it could have been like that. So it was great. It was a good working relationship, and he was just really, really, really a pro. So I think the polished audiobooks show just what a pro he is as a narrator.
That's awesome. I can't wait to listen. I think I'm going to start tonight. I finished my last book in my Libby app today, so I have to read my library books first because I don't want to keep other people waiting.
Yes. Yep. Well, Rob, if she reads, do you feel like you should have started with the prequel, or it didn't matter?
I was going to read in the order they were published because I guess I'm old school like that. I don't know. I'm used to finding series that aren't done, and I sometimes hate it. Like I'm still reading The Song of Ice and Fire, which has been undone for so long. And Patrick Rothfuss, I was so close to going to Stevens Point with my wife to Central Waters is up near there, Central Waters Brewing. But it was still a 2-hour drive one way. So we decided that's just too much for the day before Thanksgiving. So we ended up not going. But anyway, the reason, or part of the reason I wanted to go up there is because he will go to bookstores and sign his books and leave them in the stores to help them, make more money on selling books. And I would love to pick one up. I will help support a bookstore and an author I like. And so it would have been totally worth it for me. But yeah, he's dragging his feet on his last book in a series. I still recommend it. It's a really good series if you like fantasy. But yeah, so anyway, I tend to read the books in the order they were published, even with prequels and things. But I was tempted to read 0 first. I just happened to load up 1 first in the Kindle app.
Well, I didn't anticipate writing a prequel until I was in an antique store and I found a vintage photograph of this young man wearing a suit that is clearly too big for him and sitting on a bench very stiffly, just very, very handsome young man. And it was an old photograph. And it's a big photograph too. It's probably 18 inches tall, and it's oval and a domed frame, and they wanted $35 for it. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is my protagonist, Luca Lombardo, at maybe 18, 19 years old, just swimming in this suit in the 20s. And so, it's like, okay, I have to have this. So I brought it home, and it's hanging on the wall in my office behind me. And I created this whole story about this guy in this oversized suit.
Mm-hmm.
And that was Luca Lombardo as a new immigrant to the US in 1919. And he sits for a photographer who then tells people it's a, somebody famous who came in and gave him $20 for it, but that kind of then, oh, what is he doing? He's in the US, he's a new immigrant. Okay, he sits for this photographer, but how is he making any money? He's stuck in the New York City tenements. He becomes a bare knuckle fighter. And that whole prequel story then became part of the third book and how the whole saga wraps up. So it all came together. And of course, the one story wasn't enough for a prequel. So I had to write the backstory of the three main characters. So you find out how Benny Rotolo, the bootlegger, ended up working for Jaime Weiss on the North Side Gang, and how come Al Capone kicked him out of Chicago.
Okay.
So I do tend to read series in publication order, and I don't know about you. I'm a huge fan of series because if I find a character that awesome, I want their story to keep going. Do you suggest that I read the prequel first? Because I could download that one too. They're all on my TBR list. So.
Well, it's hard to say because if you read number one, you're immediately in the plot that's going to carry you through 3 books. If you just read the prequel first, some of the elements make more sense, but it's not essential. And if the prequel is essentially the 3 character backstories. So I'm going to be very annoying and say it's up to you. If you want to know the backstories,
both ways are okay.
Want to get into the plot and into the beer war that is going to unfold over 3 books, then start with number 1, Murder.
I always find the prequels when they come out as like added content,
Yes.
Yeah.
Like that's the bonus material because you just didn't want to let that character go.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. Yes, just a little bit more about those characters. Those issues that they deal with in the prequel are alluded to through the 3 main books, but you don't have to know that much about those events.
Yeah. Similarly, I like anthologies where the authors have short stories, set in their whatever world they've built in the prequel or in the anthology, where it's basically a standalone story. Maybe the characters have some slight amount of development, but it's fun if you know the characters. It's even fun if you don't.
Right.
Yes. But as I say, I would love to revisit the Galliano Club universe, but I just don't have that germ yet.
Yeah, maybe an anthology, especially the anthologies that have themes of stuff. I've been reading Unfettered, which I think is an older anthology and was started by an author because I want to say his mother, someone close to him, got terminal cancer and huge bills, and so the book came about to help pay those bills. And tons of fantasy and sci-fi authors, donated either short stories that they had sitting on the shelf that they couldn't publish elsewhere, or wrote something for it. But that one was unthemed, which I also thought was interesting. But then some of them are themed out there that have ideas, and that I sometimes structure helps to build stories. And sometimes, the wide open skies help to build stories. I don't know.
Well, I forgot to show you guys, but as part of the promotion, when the books first came out, we did beer coasters.
Oh, very nice.
Beer coasters. And so that's the the architecture of the Galliano Club with its 2 doors, the dance studio on top, and the big plate glass window. And then we had the book covers on the back.
That's really
awesome.
nice.
I still have a bunch of them. Made a big mistake. I made little packets of beer coasters for the big BoucherCon mystery conference 2 years ago. And I don't know what I was thinking about, but I put glitter in the packages. So that was probably not the best idea I ever had.
Yeah,
I'm okay with it, but I would have taken one anyways.
I would have. That's a really nice coaster.
I collect beer
Well,
coasters.
I will be happy to send you guys both some Galliano Club beer coasters to say thanks.
Actually, so we are at 1 hour, which in our show is usually an hour. Well, we say it's an hour, but we go over so often. It's always because of good conversations, though. But we're going to start wrapping this up, and our last questions are usually less about beer. It's kind of funny. We mostly talked about writing and stories, but so we'll go with something a little different. And I am going to start with tell us about your furla.
Oh, my furla bag? Yes, I admit to being a recovering handbag addict and have been lucky enough to make a couple of trips to Italy. And my signature bag that's in all the pictures on my website, it's a black leather tote. It's now a vintage tote, which tells you I've had it for a while. And that bag has been to probably 30 countries. So it is my favorite purse. I have a couple of other furlas, but that's the favorite. And so it's become my signature thing.
That's pretty cool. And 30 countries is also pretty cool. I'm going to assume that you had beer in some of them.
I did have beer in many of them. And, I was sure you were going to ask me, like, what's your favorite? And it might be Fiji bitters, which I had in Fiji. One of those places where the beer was safer than the water. I've been a lot of places like that. And Fiji bitters, boy, there were a couple of days that, just a cold beer and it's roasting hot there. And it was great. So.
Do they do this? I was in Singapore recently, which is not that far from Fiji. I guess the plane kept going. That was the stop before Fiji for the plane I was on.
Okay.
But do they do the thing with the frozen mugs and still putting ice in the beer and all that?
No.
Okay.
I just got a cold beer and a glass. That was it.
The food markets in Singapore, that was what they frozen mug, completely frozen, and they put some ice cubes in the beer and gave me a beer out of the fridge.
Oh, no, I've never had anybody put an ice cube in a beer. So just lucky, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. It was fine for what it was. It was really hot, of course.
Yes.
So go ahead, Wendy.
So I'm not going to ask what your favorite beer is, but I am going to ask what your go-to is right now.
Boy, because there are a couple of different Tennessee beers that we've tried. I can't say any of them have become my go-to. On our first date, my husband brought a bag full of Foster's oil cans. And so I have always had a soft spot for a Foster's. So I'm trying to think, like if we have a party, might get kind of a selection of, there's not that much sold here. I might get like some Sam Adams, I might get Youngling, just some of the bigger brands. But I have to say, this Austin Farmhouse Ale is pretty good.
I do love a farmhouse ale.
I will, I'm going to give it a 9 out of a 10.
Nice.
And I'm taking 1 point off for the teeny font on the logo. But other than that, this could become a new favorite.
I think it's funny because a lot of the time, like there's a lot of good beer out there, and sometimes it really is just the situation where you discover the beer, like on a beach in Fiji, would be a pretty good situation to discover a beer. Or even my favorite beer that I brought back from Thailand was from Chit Brewing, which already is a funny name, and it was Porn's Milk Stout because the head brewer of Chit Brewing, his name is Porn.
Okay.
So he made Porn's Milk Stout, and I brought some back home to share with friends. And that is, I remember it being a good beer, but I don't think it stands out like as an excellent beer. But there's a story there. It was really fun to discover. Everything about it is fun.
Yes.
Well, there is a brand new craft beer superstore about 10 miles away from us. That's where this Austin farmhouse ale came from. And so we bought a 6-pack of all different things based solely on the labels.
Yes.
And I have to say, craft beer, there are some great graphic designers creating the packaging. It's just terrific. So we're going to break into that this weekend and kind of do a taste test of all these different new beers that are all new to us.
Right.
So, but all just gorgeous packaging.
Keep an eye out for Against the Grain's brown note beer and its label. Okay. It's not particularly gorgeous, but it is definitely striking.
Okay.
And its name may give away why it's striking, but it is striking.
All right. I will check that out.
I am not ashamed to say that I have picked beers based solely on the can.
Yeah. I'm really impressed because there are some just really great artists making these craft beers so attractive.
Yep.
Just purely from a packaging point of view. And this Equilibrium brewery, they focus on, or their whole mantra is the science behind the beer. They're very into that. And their signature look is this wild, stylized profile picture of Albert Einstein. And it's actually on the main tank at the brewery, this huge, bright picture. So, kudos for just drawing in the consumer with visuals.
Yes, for sure.
You could have a whole show just on that.
Oh, I would love to get some artists on. Absolutely.
Yeah. I just really impressed. I guess I never realized being an author, I was going to get so involved in the design and the branding and things like that of the books, of any books, or the website, or how your Instagram looks. So beer really is a teaching situation when it comes to the looks too.
Carmen, we are going to start wrapping up. It has been absolutely wonderful. Do you have anything coming up, any signings, any books coming out that you want to plug? Anything happening? The audiobooks are out. Anything else?
The audiobooks are out for the Galliano Club. The newest audiobook for the Detective Amelia Cruz series is also out, Pacific Reaper, which is narrated by Leanne Maxon. And the next book I'll be putting out should be out in the mid 2026 timeframe, and that will be the Detective Amelia Cruz number 10, Dragon Cartel. So in the meantime, I hope folks do listen to those audiobooks. That's the newest thing I have, and I'm so excited to share them.
Excellent. Well, Wendy will.
I can't wait.
That's
I'm
one for
excited.
sure.
I'm literally going to start tonight.
Wendy,
Thank
do you have anything coming up that you want to plug?
I do not. My parents are driving away tomorrow. So I have 4 months of hanging out with my grandma to look forward to right now.
Right.
So I'm ready to hunker down for the winter, man.
Yeah, maybe we can find something to do.
You guys start a podcast.
Yeah. Speaking of hunkering down, we have 4 to 7 inches of snow coming into Indianapolis, which might be our annual snowfall. It's something like that.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking forward to that.
Yeah, they're trying to get out of here before the snowstorm hits because their first stop is only like 4 or 5 hours away, just outside of Kalamazoo here in Michigan. So, because they are going to take Route 66 to Texas.
They may want to get south faster.
Yeah, that's what I said, but they're working on it. They're going to try and slow play it, but
yeah,
they said they have 3 days just outside of Chicago that they're like, we might not stay 3 days depending on how cold it gets. My parents live in their RV.
Okay.
We just left Madison, Wisconsin, and they were expecting 10 inches last I checked. So that was, if they're starting Route 66 in Chicago, I can't imagine it's that much better there.
Yeah.
As for myself, I have nothing coming up. It's I'm looking forward to that after having a very busy week this week. We don't have any shows scheduled technically at the moment, but we will have a show on the 12th. On December 12th, we will have a regularly scheduled show. At the very least, it'll be a new show, but we will see if we can find a guest between now and then. And we are signing people up for later. So I'll let you know when we know who is when.
We have a lot of stuff in the works. A lot of balls in the air right now.
We do have a lot of, including, so I haven't reached out to an artist, but I have reached out to a person who designs and builds breweries and tap rooms. So an architectural firm out of Texas, and I would love to get them on and understand, that and some of the cool things they built. Anyway, we are reaching an hour and 15. This is one of our longer shows. Thank you so much, Carmen. It has been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. And we will end our show like we end every show and say, whatever you think of your beer, we think it's better on draft.
Cheers.
Have a good night.
Cheers. Thanks.